Today we are beginning our brief series on the path of prosperity, the path of prosperity. There's a young couple that went to their doctor to get the wife checked out. They had just discovered that she apparently was pregnant for the first time. And they wanted to confirm this, so they went to the doctor, and the doctor looked her over and said, yes, you are pregnant, and went and got his stamp out and hit the blotter and hit her on the stomach with this stamp. And so that they thought that was just, it was their first time having a child. They didn't ask what that was about or anything. And it was a tiny little thing, and they couldn't see what it was. So when they got home, they said, I wonder what that was, and they kind of looked there where the stamp was, and they couldn't read or tell what in the world it was. It was so small. So the husband went and got a magnifying glass and pulled that out there and started looking, and when it was actually some words there, and it said, when you can read this without a magnifying glass, come back and see me. So basically what I want to say about that is we're all pregnant with possibilities of good, okay? We're all pregnant with possibilities of greater good. And what we hope to do in this brief series is basically to expand and broaden in consciousness, whereby you get a good read on an understanding of the prosperity laws and principles that exist in this universe of which you've been placed and live. And so there is a path that we're on that is prosperity, and that path leads to opening and widening and broadening this flow of energy and creative energy in our lives. It's a way of consistently steering that energy so that we're able to experience more of God's good and greater good. And basically the same energy that creates lack is the same energy that creates abundance and prosperity, okay? I like to teach prosperity. I like to teach ideas of the laws and principles of prosperity because it helps me to, it reminds me to look at myself and some of the things that I'm doing that I could do better that would be more attuned to prosperity and opening to that flow. It allows me to focus a bit more and direct my energies and make the adjustments that I need to make. And I also like it because I find that when I'm talking or doing a series on prosperity, I become more prosperous. It's just natural because now I'm focusing on it, I'm thinking about it, I'm talking about it, I'm sending my energies into what it is that I know to be true. What you focus on basically gets you, and you get it. It's a dynamic there. And so I'm happy to be here sharing with you prosperity principles. And abundance, basically is a state of consciousness. It's a state of mind and heart, and each of our own minds, we have our own way of describing what prosperity is or isn't, what it looks like, who has it, how much of it we have or don't have. And prosperity, for sure, is spiritual. It's spiritual. It's normal. To experience abundance. It's basically not natural to be experiencing lack. It is the order of the universe that we have abundance and be on a flow, and we're all growing and learning on that. But money is not the root of all evil, as some people say. The love of money is the way it's really stated, is the root of all evil. And that simply only means that it's out of balance. It is to excess. It's greed. Greed is not a virtue by any means. But money is not bad. Money is an expression of that energy. Prosperity includes many more things than just money, of course. And it includes our health and our relationships and our sense of happiness and having basically enough to meet all of our needs and desires that exist, and also to be put in a position where we're able to contribute to the world and contribute to causes that we believe in and things like that. We are not obligated to live in limitation. It's not the way that one gets into the good graces of God as it was once taught years back. Poverty is not next to godliness, okay? So it is not a sin to be rich. It is not a sin to be rich. In fact, our co-founders in Unity basically were quoted to say, it is a sin to be poor. And what he meant by that is the word sin is from that archery term that means to miss the mark. that if we are experiencing dimensions of being poor, we're simply missing the mark, falling short of the target of understanding the fullness and the allness of the divine, whether it be the material realm or whether it be the allness and fullness of prospering in love and peace and joy and having our needs met. So lack and limitation is clearly not a characteristic of the divine. Okay? Limitation does not exist in the mind of God. God is infinite. Okay? It is not the truth of God, limitation. So we fall short of living that truth, basically, in varying degrees as we're awakening and learning and growing and unfolding and coming to understand and live the universal laws and principles that exist by which we manifest. Jesus taught that there really are no limits to what God can do as we open ourselves to the activity of this very life energy. He said, I came that you might have life and that you might have it more abundantly. Okay, so when he talks about life, all phases of life that we are to have more abundantly. He came so that he could share and bring clarity of laws and principles and ways to approach life itself and the whole creative dynamic to be able to experience that. And so he stressed that there is an abundant provision made for all humanity. He talked about the birds of the air and the lilies of the field, that there is no lack or limitation. And if we come to understand that God is infinite, and that God is good, then there really is no limit to God's good. There just can't be. And so if we say God is creator, and we say that we are made in the image and after the likeness of God, then you and I are also we're all creators. We're creating all the time. And that there are laws and principles by which we create. And we either learn and obey and understand those principles, or we're out of sort, out of harmony with them. But they have an exactness, the same as a mathematical principle has an exactness. If you don't understand the principle and you're not using it right, you won't get the right answer. You won't get the results you want in life. Now, one of the important and helpful ideas or things to learn or understand, I believe, where one should start, is understanding that there is one invisible substance that is throughout the universe, okay? And out of which all things physical and material manifest from. Get that? So there's an invisible substance. And the word substance is used because it means to substand. It stands behind everything. You can't necessarily see it, but it's invisible. It exists. It's something that originates out of the East. It was in ancient wisdom. Came from the East, and the West didn't always grasp it and understand it. People live it without necessarily knowing it at times, because we'll be talking more about that understanding. Science came around to say, okay, that invisible substance, yeah, it's kind of like in quantum physics. There are those invisible particles, invisible to the eye, that come together based on a thought, an image, an idea that brings things together. And so much of science is catching up with this idea of an invisible substance that was talked about by ancient wisdom. And so everything that a person sees, on this earth comes from this one original, invisible substance. It's thought stuff. Okay, and all form comes from the realm of the formless, everything. And so this substance, this realm of the formless, it's infinite, it's inexhaustible, it's alive with creative energy, it's intelligent, and it responds to our thoughts and our images. And so this invisible substance, it moves from the realm of the formless on into the realm of form by the imprint and the images that we hold. It's almost like a cookie cutter, that whatever we're holding, if we hold it long enough and it dominates within our framework of our consciousness, it will come to be with the precision of an algebraic formula, that it can be counted upon. There is certainty to it. And so it is infinite, it is inexhaustible. There is, we all agree, we've come to understand there is a mind-body connection, right? that basically the power of the mind has an ability to impact the body. There's a connection there. We've all accepted that. So whatever is dominant in the mind can affect the body, whether it be stresses or fear or doubts or anger, or on the positive side, the energies of love and peace and joy are felt through the body system as well, creating harmony and peace. Khalil Gibran, I like what he said. He said, if your heart is a volcano, how shall you expect flowers to bloom in your hands? And so we can say that if our heart and mind is set on lack and limitation and pessimism and various existing negative experiences or circumstances, how is it that prosperity can bloom in our life or in our world? It can't. You know, I had the opportunity to study a bit more of Henry David Thoreau. We had a pilgrimage to Concord, Massachusetts, and studied Emerson and Alcott and Thoreau. And so I did a bit of reading, and I discovered some interesting things about Thoreau. And one of them was that actually he had an unfortunate, difficult emotional experience. And it had to do with his brother. They were young adults. And this was in 1842. They had done things together, gone on trips, and he wrote about some of this in some of his writings. But it was 1842, and it was the first day of January that year. And his brother, John, Thoreau's brother, cut himself with a razor, shaving. And he cut a little piece of the end of his ring finger on his left hand. Didn't think too much of it, bandaged it up, went his way, forgot about it. And about 8 or 9 days later, he took the bandage off, and it was seriously infected. And so then on the morning of January 9th, he complained of stiffening in the jaws. And that basically that night lockjaw set in and terrible spasms. They called the doctor. The doctor said there wasn't anything they could do. And so Thoreau then nursed his brother for the next day and a half, never left his side. Held him in his arms as he died. And what happened was, to the horror of friends and family, 10 days later, Thoreau himself developed the symptoms of lockjaw. Now, he had not cut himself. It was purely an emotional, sympathetic reaction to the physical symptoms he had dealt with being around his brother. He had the symptoms for 2 days, and then from there he was better. But it shows the power of the mind to create the thing that we think about, the thing that we hold in our mind, that we're focused on and add emotion to and whatever. It's incredible, the power of the mind. And so we understand that we create in a number of realms. We understand that we create physically in the realm of physical form. In other words, we can take something that is already in form and we can create with it. We can take a piece of a tree and create and carve something out of it, or we can take that wood and make a table or a chair. Through manual physical labor, we can form things. But then we also have come to learn and understand that there is a creation that goes on mentally, even with our body, just as the story I just shared. You know, that it is, your mind is communicating to your body, and therefore your body is reflecting a state of health and happiness and well-being, or troublesomeness. And the troublesome of consistency in the mind can be carried through into the body. We know there is that connection. But we have to ask ourselves, okay, what about simply the mind's relationship in creating to the realm of the unseen? And that's what we're talking about. And that's what you need to come to understand. That at all moments of time, you are still connected to thought stuff, out of which all form comes, is this realm of the formless. And if you're going to really understand the depths of prosperity, it begins with a knowledge that at every moment you are impacting an invisible soup, if you will, of thought stuff that is molding and shaping at all moments. And what most dominant is most dominant in you in terms of thoughts, ideas, and images is what it is that you're going to bring into your experience and your reality. That is certainly, you know, nothing new from what we are and have taught here. But the thing that we think about, the most is what we create. And it's important to understand then how we think, the way that we think, what we're thinking about. It's important, therefore, to understand to be mindful at the door of our mind, if you will, and how we can open up to the flow of good. So this idea of invisible substance, actually, Deepak Chopra, in some of his writings, he has this wonderful piece that I just love, where he talks about this, and in a very powerful way. He says this: behind the visible garment of the universe, beyond the mirage of molecules, beyond the illusion of physicality, lies an inherently invisible, seamless matrix made up of nothingness. This invisible nothingness silently orchestrates, instructs, guides, governs, and compels nature to express itself with infinite creativity, infinite abundance, and unfaltering exactitude into a myriad of designs and patterns and forms. Life experiences, he says, are the continuum in this seamless matrix of nothingness, in this continuum of both body and environment. They are our experiences of joy and sorrow, of success and failure, of wealth and poverty. All these events seemingly happen to us, but at very primordial levels, we are making them happen. Isn't that great? All right. So it is an invisible, seamless matrix he's talking about. That's what he refers to it. But he calls it nothingness. And we know, and he knows, it's not nothingness. All right? It's stuff, to quote our vice president. It's stuff. And this is thought stuff. And so, basically science has said that it's quantum physics, quarks, whatever you want to call it, different little particles. But he says that inside it there is infinite creativity, infinite abundance, and unfaltering exactitude. Very important to know. And out of this matrix comes our experience of joy and sorrow, success and failure, prosperity or wealth and poverty. And so with our thoughts, we are creating this consciousness that is communicating at all times. We are communicating, whether we're aware of it or not, with this invisible matrix that is incredibly creative with energy and is exacting. And just a powerful thing for us to know. And so with every thought, we are either basically pulling something toward us or pushing something away from us. And it's good for us to be more awake and aware of what is it in the ideas, the thoughts, beliefs that shape and mold our consciousness. What is it that we're pulling toward us, and what is it that we're pushing away from us? It is said that there is no yes and no in God. There is only yes. You see, all God can do is say yes, because He's given you the creative capacity to fill your consciousness with that which is of the truth, or that which is far and away something other than the truth. And that's why we say, and Jesus taught, you shall know the truth, and that truth shall set you free. That truth will bring you abundance. When you live something that is less than the truth, you will experience limitation, which is not the true nature of the divine, which is really a reflection of separation at some level of our consciousness that we have to move beyond. Jesus said it is the Father's good pleasure to give. It is the Father's good pleasure to give, and therefore you and I have to be able to put ourselves in a position for our God to have that pleasure. Okay? And so most important is to understand that no matter what the circumstances, no matter what the appearances of things going on in your world or the world or around you, that there is always an infinite substance. There is always enough, okay? Because it's infinite. Now, one great story on this is from the Old Testament, where Elijah and Elijah and the widow. Elijah was a prophet. The widow, her husband had died, and now she had all this debt, and her sons were going to be taken away to pay for that debt. That was what they did in those days. So she called on Elijah. Elijah comes, and he asks a question. And his first question is, what was it that she had in the house? That question means basically, symbolically, what's on your mind? You know, what is it that's going on in your consciousness? What level of faith do you have? Her answer was nothing but a jar of oil, which means my faith is very low. I have very little when it comes to faith right now. And he said, okay, we got to expand. So go borrow, borrow and gather as many vessels as you can. We need to expand. And he said, not too few, but many. And so she went and did so. And when she brought the vessels back that she had collected, they began to pour. And they poured from that one jar of oil. And they filled the vessels. And the oil did not stop flowing until the last vessel she had was filled. And the Bible says, then the oil stayed. It doesn't say it stopped. It says it stayed, which means that the universe had more to give. It always has more to give. It is infinite. It is inexhaustible. There is no end to it. It can only be stayed. It can't be stopped. We stop it, okay? And it's important to get that. So the appearances were, there was only one jar of oil there, but the truth is, the oil of abundance is unlimited. And so, Jesus said a man's foes will be those of his own household. It's the foes of doubt and fear and pessimism and lack of faith, appearances and circumstances, becoming loyal to what those are. So the solution is to become more conscious and more intentional in regard to what it is that is going on in your house, in the house of your own mind and your own consciousness. That's the answer. And so we want to consider what it is that you want. What is it that you want? Is it a trip? Is it money? Is it a vehicle? What is it? It can be physical things. It can be also intangible things of more joy, peace, love, whatever. But get a specific picture of what it is. Write it down. Allow your emotions and senses to be filled with it. Get specific. Get detailed. Have faith that you know this can come to you. Hold to the truth beyond what the appearances and circumstances. God asks us only for cooperation. How could I or God or anyone ever give to you something if number one, you don't know what it is, you're not able to be specific, and you're not even willing to ask? And the asking is the putting it out there. And then it is the believing. I mean, that's why there's so much spoken about faith and belief and trust. It's like knowing the universe works like this, and that knowing helps, okay? And you don't need to know how, you just need to know what. There's a great story that is told about a lady. True story. This is years ago, but she, since childhood, had this dream and fantasy of going on a ship, a steamer, And so this is really an old story. But anyway, she didn't believe she ever had the time, or it was too expensive, it wouldn't happen. So it was a fantasy. And then she had surgery and was in the hospital as an adult. And she was reading some ideas on the power of the mind and the use of the imagination and how important it is to put one's faith into that and it can become real. So she decided that she would start experimenting with this. So she decided to get specific and intensify. And she wrote the steamship line asking for travel brochures. They were free. And she poured over them hour after hour while she was in the hospital for a whole week. She was choosing the ship, choosing the stateroom, choosing the 7 ports she would be in. She would feel the water in the movement of the water on the side of the ship. She walked aboard the ship and saw herself and felt herself doing it. She heard the sounds of those waves. She felt the warmth of the tropical sun beating upon her face. She smelled and tasted the salt in the air. She did it all for hours for a whole week. Then she put the brochures away and forgot about it, trusted. And 2 months later, she discovered that she had won an advertising agency, a contest that she had submitted. It was at a supermarket, a coupon, something. She won first prize. And the first prize was a Caribbean cruise. And it was sponsored by the exact same cruise line that she had sent away for brochures. And they had given her the exact ship that she had in her mind chosen. Okay? And they gave her the same stateroom that she had chosen based on seeing them in the brochure. I want this one. It was upscale too. She thought big. And then that ship and that cruise was stopping at the very 7 ports that she had selected in her mind. Everything. Now, it's not a strange story. We've heard them before. We can live, every one of us could stand up and say, I have a story similar to that. Or several, perhaps. I could go on and on about things that happened in my life. But it's important to understand that the exactitude that went on in that story, and that's exactly how it can be. You know, everything in that story is transferable to you and me, to whatever's going on, whatever it is that we're wanting and desiring. The only block, the only obstacle is really ourselves. Somewhere inside ourselves we're saying no, because God only says yes. It's an understanding that the infinite is there to help and assist you. So listen to your mind. Listen to what is, even as you listen to that story, was there a part of you that said, that can't happen for me? I wish it could, but it just doesn't, or blah, 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 or I have this or that stands in the way. You don't need to know how, you need to know what. Okay? There is much to go over in this idea of a path to prosperity. And there are lots of ideas, but this is where it starts. You have to start with an understanding that you live in an infinite universe, and there is an inexhaustible matrix of energy that is divine, and it is the way that God is there to help and assist you.